Hello everyone. I'm here with Hank and with Stitch, and we're going to go over feeding. So I've only fed Hank a couple of times, so I'm not going to look for perfect with him. The fact that he is having moments where he's making eye contact is a win. When he first started boarding with us, he would just stare at the food the whole time. So I'm not going to look for perfect, like I said, but I am going to look for certain things. So I am going to be breaking up his food and waiting for eye contact before I feed him. I'm not going to focus on the tail being calm right now. So right now it's standing and not sitting. So anytime he sits, I'm going to just shuffle his feet around. He has some of the Jentle method, but not all of it. Okay, leave it. So there, I said, okay, he got a couple of bites, and then I'm bumping him away and saying, leave it. Another way that he's pretty light on the lead. If we have a dog that is not so light on the lead, we can take an angle here. So I'm going to shift his feet and have him stand up again. So I'll take the angle. Okay, leave it. So I'm not bumping him directly back. I'm instead bumping him at more of an angle here to bring his head to the side. If we bump them and they're not light, he is light. He's still figuring things out and learning. Leave it. And that's just a piece of gravel. So I'll show you the angle again. Okay, leave it. Bump, 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 bump. So I'm taking him to the side. And when I'm bumping him, I'm getting some movement from his feet as well. And he's not, leave it. I'm not bumping him off the food, and he's just like hovering over the food bowl. He's moving away from the food bowl. So I'll wait for the eye contact and not the sitting. Okay, leave it. So bump, 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 moving the feet away from the food. Leave it. Another thing, leave it. So there I bumped him, and then he took that into sitting, so that's when I'm immediately taking an angle and bumping him away. Some piece of feeding that we like to do with dogs that I've been doing with him is moving the food around. Sometimes when you shuffle the food around like this, they can just immediately go into eating. Also, like putting the food on the ground is pretty triggering for him to just want to go immediately into eating. Leave it. Good boy. Leave it. So I said leave it there because good boy isn't the release. You can also move it away if that might be the thing. Good boy. Bump, bump. And his tail is pretty active. Again, that's not what I'm looking for. Okay. Leave it. I'm not trying to look for a lot of things. Leave it. At once, I'm not looking for perfect. Leave it. And just noticing the pattern in the reactivity towards the food and the just going straight for it is guiding him up to it too. I bump him away, and then when I was guiding him up, that's when he's like, oh, walking up to the food means I get it. Cole saying good boy means I get it. So once we see a pattern like this, redoing that pattern. So maybe it's shifting the food on the ground, maybe it's the dog walking up to the food, maybe it's putting the food on the ground. Maybe it's if we're kneeling down and not standing. Okay. Leave it. Leave it. Leave it. Okay. Leave it. Bump, 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 bump. Leave it. And I'm bump, bump, bump. It's not a hanging with the bump. It's active. Okay. And then you can also play around with the duration of time that you're waiting for them. That they're waiting for their food before you feed them. Sometimes they can be okay. So now he's like looking around to see if there's any food around. There's not, and so I'm gonna bump him off of that. But playing around with the amount of time, because they might be okay for a second or two, and then they just start to lose it. And so trying to extend the amount of time that they're around the food and not getting super frantic. So just finding these little points with the dog that we notice of like, oh, okay, you love to sit, you're fixating, there's not a lot of eye contact. If the bowl moves around, you get really frantic. If I walk you like up to the food, you just immediately hit on it. So noticing these things and then working through them. Feeding is such a unique thing for each dog because they have a different, it's all the same communication, we look for the same stuff, but their like threshold, you could say, can be different because some dogs just being around their food is really intense. And so we might be looking for less, we might not be pushing the amount of time. And again, I'm bumping him because he thinks all these little things on the ground is food. And just what I've noticed with him is that if he gets into that mindset of searching, he can get like frantic in it. And so I'm bumping him out of that state of mind to keep him more peaceful. So those are some points on feeding. I hope that's helpful. Thank you.